Hello and welcome back to another episode of Fun Friday with an incredible guest here. We've got our director of HR, someone who was an organic hire, which is super cool. I've known Hannah for many years at this point, so it's very fun to have you on the podcast today to talk all things human relations and kind of your story and background. And just for those who don't know how our company works, when you get to scale, when you get to over half a billion AUM, we're about 750 as we record today. Hopefully, we'll have larger numbers by the time you hear this or whatever. But you have a constant stream of hiring and firing. Unfortunately, firing, but hiring and getting talent to your company, and there's always a revolving door of people. But Hannah is the forefront of that. So Hannah Wyatt, super excited to have you on today. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm having a full circle moment just because, where I started, which we'll get into, kind of my introduction to Lone Star came from the podcast. So now to be featured on is a huge compliment, and I don't take it for granted. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, it's earned. We would not be where we are today without the systems you put into place. And speaking of all of that, there wasn't really much infrastructure there to start with per se, because we were a smaller company by the time, I think when you joined us, we were several hundred million less in portfolio size. And as companies evolve, so do roles, so do positions, and so do the human capital there, if you will. But I'm more confident knowing that you're at our company. So thank you so much for being here, for doing such a great job. But let's just get into your story and how you got here.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started at Lone Star, I was the executive assistant. So as I said before, I was doing a lot of the investor relations and marketing, everything from podcasts, going through making sure that everything looked clean, helping organize the content calendars, and just kind of overseeing that alongside Dasha, and then helping out with all of the events, all of the closing things that come along with it. Just kind of being directly underneath Dasha and assisting her with all of her initiatives. So about 6 months into the job, we decided to bring our HR and accounting in-house. We were using this company called Ascent, and it was part of our initiative to start really, being lean, cutting costs where we can, and also having more oversight into the way that operations works. So when we brought Ascent, when we dissolved our contract with Ascent and brought accounting and HR in house, Ina Beardsley, our CLO, she was supposed to be overseeing both of those departments.
It's a lot.
And oh, it's a lot. It's a lot all at once. I'm
Yeah.
even now that I'm thinking about it, like that was a very bullish, very strong initiative that her and Rob, wanted to take on. But I was like, cool, that's happening. And as we started to absorb all of the things that come along with these two departments, she was so caught up in the accounting and all of these, systems, and trying to make sure that that was integrated as smoothly as possible, that HR was left over here without someone to really be able to focus on it, and how important it is, someone to be there to kind of catch it and all of the things that come along with human resources. So um, at the time, I, was helping a little bit with accounting, a little bit with HR. It was just kind of like all hands on deck, like let's just, work together as a team to get this going. And at the time, I didn't really have a vision of where I fit into Lone Star, but I mean, I've known Rob forever. I've known you forever. I've known Dasha. You guys have kind of made my life in integrating into New York, from the very beginning, feel like home in a way. And so now joining Lone Star, I've bought into the vision since the beginning.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
like
you're
my
yeah, you're very much so part of the long-term continuity within the team. We kind of joke that, there's just some people that you just don't know how long they'll be at the company for. I think that's natural. It's not a shot. We hope everyone stays and kind of levels up like you have, but you just don't know, where someone wants to see themselves. Not everyone wants to be at the same company forever. Or a lot of people want to, kind of job climb and, kind of get to the next height, maybe start their own thing. That's totally cool. But I think we kind of talk internally about how there's some people that, hey, will be here as lifers, which is super cool.
No, I'm super grateful every single day I wake up to be a part of the Lone Star team and Lone Star family. Like it's literally a dream come true just with my background and everything. I never thought I would be here. So I don't take any of it for granted whatsoever. But so going back to when we absorbed the HR department, and Ina needed help, I kind of stepped in just to assist her with what she needed. But she was so caught up in the accounting side of it that things kind of fell onto me, and I knew nothing about HR at the time. I was exposed to more, I would say, more like social aspects of dealing with people, but never the process of actually bringing on an employee and going through a whole like employee life cycle. I was not privy to that whatsoever. So I that's okay. Wait, here. No, you're good. You're good. Hina, speak of the devil.
Yes.
So I kind of came in and I was assisting her. And as I started to, I remember we were working on the employee handbook. That was like the first thing. That's the Bible. That's, got all of our policies and procedures in a kind of robust view, and we can kind of work from there. So her and I started working on that, and I just started to kind of write excerpts, and I would listen to what she would say, and it would be a long conversation. I'm very fast paced. She's very low, very, very slow, very detailed. So
Yeah, do
it's
it
been
like
an
you're kind of
adjustment.
like me. You do, and then you kind of make revisions. And she's like, "I'm gonna do it one time, do it correctly, and then build from there." And
That's a great way of putting it.
yeah,
Great way of putting it. Yeah, she doesn't move on to the next thing until the thing she's working on is complete. Whereas I want to get everything done. I want to have oversight of all of the different components, and then go back slowly into the framework and just kind of build it out from there, and kind of sift through and filter and make it perfect as a whole. So it was an adjustment, trying to kind of get into her mind. But I think that was such a great foundation. And going over just the handbook, it's such a big task, but just one small component of what we've done so far. And I think it really taught me how to listen to her and to get in her mind and figure out, well, what is she trying to convey? Like, what is the main objective, and what action items can I pull from that, and then in turn translate into into the vision that her and Rob are trying to build for Lone Star. So that all started with the handbook, and she was like, you're good at this. And I was like, thanks. Like I'm enjoying, like, I've got a little help from everyone in ChatGPT, but like, I feel like this makes sense. This is how it should be worded. And
logical. Yeah,
yeah. Like it's still hitting all the points, and it's making sense, and it's flowing. So, and she was like, have you ever wanted to go into HR? And it's like, yes, that's every little girl's dream, is to go to HR. But because there's like a stigma around what HR means. And at the time, that's what I believed I would be stepping into if I were to take a role, within HR at Lone Star. And so I said no. And a couple months down the line, we're having another conversation, and I'm now at this point doing payroll. We absorbed from Ascent as well, our HRIS, and they had to make a whole new account, and we were now going to be responsible for rolling out payroll. And I kind of fell into that. And so now I've done these two big components of HR, and her and I are talking, and I was like, you know what? I love people. I was getting my degree in psychology. I love the way the mind works. I'm fascinated with human beings, and I want to make an impact. And to be able to do that for people within their line of work, I think is a unique opportunity, because you can be a therapist, but like people have to seek that out. But what if you start kind of at this like route in a way? Like, what if you start in the workplace where people have to show up? Like, you have to go to work. Well, what if I was able to make that a fun environment, or an environment that makes you feel fulfilled, one where you see yourself as a part of the whole and can contribute, and therefore we all benefit, we all win
Also
because each one of
facing,
us is winning.
yeah, it's also, you're setting people's lives, where they come, where they show up. You're
Hmm.
basically the front point of the culture within the company. Is, you're the first person there, and it's, it should not be. It's unfortunate that there was ever any stigma that you felt that way, I guess, initially, because it is the kind of the straw that stirs the drink, which is the people. Companies are a collection of people. It is, a place people come to work. This is, where a third of people's lives are, is, their working life. You sleep, you work, and then you've got your hours before and after. But that's the meat of the sandwich, is the work part of the day there, if you will. So it's very important to have that. And starting from scratch is no joke. Just to summarize, going from Ascent, which was a third party service, which is what you do when you're a little bit, smaller of a company, to creating something from scratch is not easy to do. And there's a lot of liability that you're in charge of there also. This is talking about, potential lawsuits depending on the state that you're in, stuff like that. So to go from nothing to something is a very important role that you obviously facilitated there. And it's a revolving door of also people coming in and out and hiring and whatnot. So, and then payroll systems, all sorts of things like that, is just, you don't think about that, I think, necessarily, if you're an investor, if you're a capital raiser, as to, well, what's the infrastructure of the company like? Are they going to be viable? Are there problems? There turmoil with hiring? Are there issues there? If you're an investor, if you're a capital raiser, these are things that you don't want to be thinking about per se. But the more legitimate of a company and the larger scale you get, you're dealing with so many human beings. So that's why this conversation today is so important, is just talking about, how you've kind of created that which you have, and then the evolution of it, if you will. So just to kind of double click on that, if you will, just the importance of what you've done, the kind of creating of the systems, is something that, as I said, you don't want to think about it because you assume it's there. But that's a pretty large assumption if you really think about all the hirings that go on within a company.
I mean, absolutely, because especially with our industry, it's all built on people. Our on-site teams are the ones that are day in, day out running the office. They're maintaining occupancy. They're collecting, to keep delinquency down. They're the ones that are carrying out all of the visions that we create on the corporate level. And so the way that we hire is very specific. The way that we, treat our people is specific, but it's also evolving, because, like you said, there was no infrastructure that was, transferred over upon the absorption of the HR department from Ascent. So, I'm still learning. I'm still trying to understand, well, what do we need in order to truly achieve the vision that we have for being the type of property management company, that we would like to be. So I honestly enjoyed building from the ground up.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of, I'm not very autonomous, but if you give me an objective and you give me the room, I I will go for it and I will build, and I'm very particular in the way that I want things to flow. It needs to be logical. Like the interface needs to be something that you can walk into and not have to think about too much and just be able to click around. So I've been able to then utilize having no structure whatsoever to make it my own. So everything that we have is all new softwares, new spreadsheets that integrate with each other. It's getting to get down and do research to see, well, what's going to be the best resource for us to use for an HRIS, or for a background checks for our LMS software. Like I love to have that type of control, and so that's what was given upon the absorption of Ascent with no resource
Well,
whatsoever.
thinking about this as well, it's kind of, I think, and you'll appreciate this, but some people, their art form is business. Like, I think Rob's version of art And what he likes to do is he'll create a business from scratch. He'll kind of read a book and apply it. That's his form of art. I think you're pretty fair to say evolved in the arts. I think you naturally enjoy it. Your personal life would definitely indicate such with kind of your interests and your kind of your some of your past side jobs and stuff, which we don't have to get into that, if you will, and career, if you will, and whatnot. But you have that artistic vision, and within you, this is kind of another form of art, I would almost say, is kind of creating stuff from scratch and exercising that part of your brain there, if you will. Different, but similar in some respects, I would definitely say, because it's building.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's building, and with the what I like is it's like touched by everyone. Like everyone is using these spreadsheets, everyone is using these softwares, and so really having to think about how it's going to impact the whole company is, I think, part of our corporate culture. When we've been, hiring, we just hired a financial analyst and another asset manager. We're looking for a tax associate. So, something that we're looking for is an individual who just carries the mental load and will not let go of a task until it's done perfectly, it's done holistically, it's done to the highest degree of quality, because they understand that what they're doing in a small and lean company is that what they're building is being touched by everyone. Like everyone is seeing it and everyone's using it. So you're not uh, just solving a problem or completing a task. You're building a solution to anything that you're doing, especially where we're at right now. It's because by completing a task and checking off the list, like you get that, little bit of satisfaction, but it also insinuates that what you're doing is just this repetitive hamster wheel style of work, rather than being like, wow, we have, for example, Liam, one thing that, him and I have been working on is our like making sure all of the laptops on the property management side at each one of our properties is documented in a way that we can see, what the assets are and where they're at and who has them. And so him and I are collaborating, and we're trying to, we're sending out forms and everything, but like the way that we're doing it is to solve this long-term issue of, we don't have any way to store this information or to gather this information. We literally have to make a workflow and then create the resources to support it in order to solve this short-term problem of, let's get all of these laptops documented, in the long term of, how are we going to make sure that upon onboarding people have a laptop ready for them to start on their first day, so they're not just waiting around for, a way to get online and to start working.
That's amazing. And honestly, I love that quote, building a solution. That is awesome. That is an awesome mindset to have, which is, you're not basically having a quick band-aid. It's a perpetual solve to a problem, right? Building that
Mhm.
solution, putting that in place. And, it's funny, you'll appreciate this, Hannah, but that just made me think is the one sucky thing about starting a job is starting the job and getting into your flow of
Mhm.
it. So how can you expedite that flow situation is great. And then another thing I want to revisit too is, the hiring process and, communities and everything that you do directly impacts all of the units, right? You look at a granular number of 750 million assets under management, which is where we are today, just to highlight that once more. But you got to break it down to 750,000 or $750 million is 5,000 units that we have under management. 5,000 units is 5,000 families that potentially live on site that you are solving for here with the hiring and firing. And you got to look it down to a human level as to how we provide those people the best experience possible, which is the hiring systems and putting the right teams in place. And then it goes down to, we acquire these deals on my end of things, Brad, Dasha, myself, Sam, we acquire these deals, but we're acquiring, X million dollars, that's an X million dollar business that's ran by employees, by people, right? And that's exactly where you step in. That's why these conversations are so important, just to understand that process. And speaking of which, let's get into the hiring process, what that looks like, and then leveraging our favorite tool, which is Culture Index, if you will. And, do you mind talking about your experience with Culture Index and what that looks like from a hiring perspective and how we onboard people in and the do's, the don'ts that you can share there, if you will?
Absolutely. So our hiring pipeline is constantly evolving. We're still trying to find the perfect, most efficient, most cost-effective way to bring in people. We have our framework, but then our top of funnel kind of shifts and it changes. So one top of funnel would be referrals. We highly encourage our employees to send us referrals because a lot of those people have been vetted very
When they're good, by the way.
thoroughly. Yes, that's something we definitely put in the notes in the
Naturally, yeah.
in
Not just any
our
referral, but from the best people. We want your referrals because, hopefully birds of a feather flock together and, other good people can identify good talent.
exactly. So that's one of them. A lot of them also come from Indeed, come from LinkedIn. So that funnel, that kind of pipeline has actually literally since over the weekend, it's shifted. So we've now incorporated a new software that utilizes AI to look at different resume criteria, and you can get really granular with the types of individuals and experience that you're looking for. And you can use as many of this criteria as you'd like, and it will make inferences within the resume based on the objectives and the like, something that you wanted them to learn, or does this person kind of operate like this? They will scan the resumes and they will rank them based on what you would like. So what this software does is it ranks it in the way that we've integrated it with our HRIS system, is like a machine. So it scans and then it pumps the resume and the candidate directly into our hiring pipeline within the HRIS. And from there, an automated email is sent for them to complete the culture index test. So the culture index test is a personality and job personality assessment that we have all of our applicants and our current employees fill out. So what this does is it measures someone's baseline personality and then how they alter it to fit their perception of how they're supposed to show up in their job. So it measures their level of autonomy, their sociability, their pace, their attention to detail, their logic, their innovation, and their energy units. So by the way that these types of, or the way that these components of their personality interact gives them kind of like an archetype, and we measure those points and the extremities as well as the type of personality when applying them to not just a specific job position and position seat, but also the type of tenant base, the other people on site, the type of property and how demanding it is. So we kind of use it as a kind of baseline of saying, okay, what is this person? Who are they? And where can we put them? Because you get a couple rounds of interviews in with people and you get a good view of who they are, but at the end of the day, it kind of fast tracks all of that, right? Because I don't get to sit down with these people for a couple days and really get to see, okay, what are
The
you
time
looking
saver.
for?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what's your vision for your life? Like I can ask that, but then I'm going to apply it to these very statistical pieces of who you are and see if that fits for us. So,
It's a personality
um,
data shortcut, right? It's basically, hey, certain roles are going to have certain personality types that are good. Like you wouldn't put me in an accounting position because that would probably kill me. You probably wouldn't put yourself in a role like that because that would not work for you either, right? It's good maybe
I
to
did
have
it for a bit.
it's good to have a little information, but it's probably doesn't serve your soul, if you will. And like you want to have people that are in the right spot. And it's just, as I said, it's a hack, it's a shortcut, it's a way to ideally expedite time, but have higher levels of precision when you do say yes to someone, particularly if there's multiple candidates there, if you will. With that said, you have certain cohorts, you kind of figure out what works for some people, what doesn't. Have someone ever, in your experience, applied for a certain position, had not the right components for a certain job, but would be in a better place in another role within the company? And if we hired that person for that other role potentially?
Absolutely. We're kind of currently doing that right now. So we have postings out for a community manager position where this would be an individual who is running the property. It's more of a managerial style job where they're coordinating with the on-site teams, with the tenants, with the vendors. It's a lot of admin tasks where it's paperwork filing, making sure that things are in compliance if it's an affordable housing, asset. So there's that type of personality, which is the typical kind of growth path from leasing agent to assistant community manager to community manager. So we have a posting out for that CM, but we get a lot of people who are highly sociable. So a CM, if they are way too social, if they are way too fast paced, they're going to be more likely spending time talking to tenants and building relationships rather than being in the office closed off, getting the work done, making sure the actual asset is staying operating smoothly. So these types of people are highly valuable that are very responsible, that do have experience, but their focus and their talents lie with the people aspect. So that's where we've created a position called the community relations representative. So this gives leasing agents, people that are more sociable, that thrive in a job position where they're dealing with tenants, they're dealing with collections, they're dealing with things that require a lot of talking, more like a sales position. We've given them that agency to be able to grow within our company but by keeping the type of tasks that are more aligned with that type of individual. So we get a lot of CMs that apply for the CM job, and after a meeting or two with me and Ina, they can start to see the vision, and we've actually hired them as community relations representatives. So we've done that at a couple different properties,
And that's
and
a little bit
it's
different of a name, right, than the more traditional and standard. Because that would normally, would you maybe make the claim, and perhaps I'm wrong here, but that would be more of like what would be a traditional leasing officer almost. They have some of those roles coupled with kind of ongoing, client facing, human facing, property relation facing stuff. It's kind of a hybrid of two roles there, if you will. Is that fair to say, or am I totally off base?
No, no, you're correct. It's more so it's a leasing agent with a assistant community manager kind of conglomerate.
Flavor, yeah.
Yes, but we're the way that we're trying to really look at all of these positions again is changing because on each site doing a division of responsibilities to see continuities, to see okay, well, this is what they're doing at one property that's not doing as great as this other one. What are the responsibilities and the breakouts of those between the on-site teams? Okay, is collections good? Well, who's on collections? So it's stuff like that. But when we posted the community relations representative position on LinkedIn, Indeed, you're not getting the same types of people applying for that job because they don't quite understand it, because it's not an industry standard. So that's why it's almost, I'd say it's kind of like a bait and switch, because the opportunity to make as much money, to have as much success as a CM is there for the CR, which is our internal kind of acronym language for the positions. But you have to really talk to people and help them actually perceive it from the way that you're trying to convey it. It's harder to do in a job post as it is by getting them on the phone and saying, okay, this is what we're doing. We think you'd be great at it. Will you give us a shot?
Yeah,
So
well,
that's kind of
yeah, no, it's really interesting because we do use a little bit different of wording. It's kind of semantics ultimately, but to get them there is the challenge, and then to have them see your vision is the next step of it, if you will. But that takes salesmanship, and I think a lot of stuff does come back to selling and whatnot, which obviously you do a great job of conveying that and creating an environment where people do want to work there, right? So speaking of all kind of the names and stuff, I think if we could peel back a little bit to really break down at a property level, let's say a typical property that we have, what how many employees are there? What are the jobs actually? What are the roles, and how does it all function? Could you possibly break that down for us?
Of course, yeah. So we have, it depends on the size of the asset. So we do about 100 employees to, or sorry. So depends on the size of the asset. So for about 100 units, we place one individual. So our typical unit count is about 250. So it kind of depends on the location, the state of the asset. So it'll be between 2 and 3 people. So the typical kind of structure is your leasing agent, who handles the leasing, the marketing, all of the things that are more interactive with tenants. Then you have your ACM, your assistant community manager, who does more of the collections, will do a lot of the paperwork filing, who will, walk the units, do a lot of tours. They'll work with the leasing agent on that. Then we have the CM, who is overseeing the, as I said before, kind of entire asset in and of itself, making sure that things are running smoothly. You've got your vendor management, you've got your maintenance team. They're the ones that are making sure that, all the work orders are getting done. If we're doing a CapEx project on a value add asset, they're the ones that are kind of coordinating. They're doing all of the banking, the inputting of invoices, so that we can, make sure that our financials are aligned for all of our reporting. So that CM position is incredibly important. But then, with the ACM and the leasing and kind of combining that, you can then cater to those that are on the easier side, but like the 250 number unit count, by just having 2 people on site. It saves money, it saves time and energy, and it's by having 2 strong people there to really divide things very thoroughly, and in a typical sense, then that's what we found kind of works.
So you have that there, and then let's go to maybe, on-site staff, like maintenance people, stuff like that. Well, how does that work, and how many other employees are working on the property for a typical payroll situation on an individual property level?
So for maintenance, we have our director of maintenance. He's the one that's kind of staffing that. So they don't go through our usual pipeline for hiring. A lot of those have actually been referrals, which has worked out quite a bit, because again, you have your vetted people who, when you are your closest friends, and so when you bring them into the team, they're going to be high quality as well, most likely. So we have our lead maintenance, who is overseeing all of the operations for the on-site. Then
Would
we
that
have
be
our
Jeff?
assistant. No, he does that for the entire portfolio.
I see.
Yes, yeah. So he's staffing, he's going in and making sure that everyone's doing the correct kind of systems and operations when it comes to handling everything from, fixing pipes and managing leaks to just like how a standard make ready should be up to par within a, Lone Star property. So
And by the
he's
way,
kind of.
a make ready is when, let's say, tenant A has been there for a year, they move out, and the next tenant comes to get that property and that individual unit within, the macro 250 unit property. Basically, tenant A leaves, tenant B comes in, and that property is brand new with new carpet, potentially paint, and there's no holes that have been punched through. There's no bad smell, anything like that. So basically, a unit that is ready to be re-rented after someone has been there for X amount of time.
Yes, and so the severity of what needs to be done in a make ready does, kind of ebb and flow. We, typically keep that in house, but sometimes it is cheaper to outsource that just because of, time of resources. Some companies bring in all the paint to do a full turn. Sometimes they'll, come in and one person will want to completely replace the carpet. Some want to do a little patch. So it kind of that ebbs and flows, but we have someone designated to the properties that's specifically on make readies, and then we'll just kind of assist them with contracting out that work, getting them the supplies if need be, if we've got a lot of or if we have a ton of renewals, or if we don't, that impacts it. So yeah, we have the make ready, and then we have a porter who takes care of the amenities, takes care of the grounds, the leasing office, kind of fits in all of the cracks. So it's typically about 4 on-site maintenance team there at all times.
Awesome. So let's go now to kind of, finding ways to attract talent and whatnot. What are the ways to kind of best attract top talent that align with our vision as a company? Is there anything we do differently? Anything that's kind of standard? But, how do you think about that when it comes to hiring and whatnot? Because as I said, you're usually the face of all of that, whether it be on property and then also on the corporate side of things, which could honestly vary and change. But, what does that look like on your end?
So the what attracts people for the property management side versus the corporate side is a little bit different. So for the communities, for Lone Star communities, the types of people that we're trying to attract are growth oriented. So our job postings will have that type of kind of verbiage to let people know that they're stepping into a company that wants to give them the resources to grow, that wants them to excel in whatever area. And part of that is advertising, that growth track to CR or CM. Because we're at the end of the day very aware that taking care of good people is how you inevitably are able to succeed, right? Long-term employees, long-term tenants, which is the goal in any case. But for us, so how do you communicate growth? Well, we are working on it. It's my goal by the end of the month to kind of have that ball rolling. It's been on our radar for a while, but Lone Star University. This is a like learning, type of modules that will eventually have certifications with them, where you can learn all of the things that come with running a property management, or sorry, um, all of the things that come along with running a leasing office.
That's
So
so cool. It's
it
basically like a course module is not that we're going to sell, but more of a way to expedite the learning curve and to kind of create systems and processes to expedite that and make it more standardized throughout each thing. Because, if you get someone who maybe has never been in this business before, they might have, no habits, you can reinforce them, or there might be someone who's been in it for a while, but is not doing it the way that your company, our company wants it to be doing moving forward. So kind of creating that will only make our processes and systems that much better.
exactly. It's yeah, it gives people an opportunity, no matter what your background is, to learn and to understand how we want things done. So you can take someone who is, from the hospitality industry and has great character and huge drive and wants to learn, wants to grow, and give them the actual resources, such as a learning module with different courses and tests and different just material that we've curated to properly convey, okay, this is how it's done within Lone Star. So you can take those people with high character, no skill, teach them skill, and then you can take people that have the character, have the skill, and just fine tune the skill to fit what we're looking for.
Without a doubt. And that's just so important to kind of harp on that. And you made an interesting point there, which is hiring maybe people that weren't within the space, right? So you mentioned certain positions, certain roles kind of translate well to, what we're doing. Have you seen some kind of non-traditional positions that have translated well into maybe making great leasing agents and stuff like that?
Absolutely. I mean, anyone where you're dealing with people. I've worked in a restaurant myself before, and I mean, let me tell you, like dealing with people when you're providing a service, it takes a special type
Tough.
of patience. It takes a special type of love for what you do to remind yourself every single day. It's not personal. It's just the job, but you're still getting that satisfaction of helping people get what they need. And in this case, it's literally a home. Like you're helping put a roof over their head. It's incredibly rewarding. But there's also all of that strife that comes with the complications or just the frustrations of things not going their way when it comes to where they live. So a lot of people that have worked in restaurants, like to work in a restaurant, you've got to want to work hard. You're on your feet, you're moving around, you're dealing with people, and they're hangry and they want things a certain way. And
It might be taking
so
their bad attitude out on you, right? People,
exactly.
they've got no buy-in to be polite, unfortunately.
Exactly. And you never know what their day was like before that. So people also that have worked in hotels, that's translated well too, because of if you think about it, like they're dealing with units just in a different form.
Certainly.
So those are the two bigger industries that we've seen people kind of come in from, because they'll be just, on Indeed or on LinkedIn searching, and they're like, wow, look at this job posting with all of this opportunity for growth. So
So when we are in the hiring process, there's a little, scaling, obviously since you've been here, you've seen, massive growth, but with massive growth becomes maybe some bottlenecks, some problems in that process there, if you will. So when we are, looking to bring on individuals, what is the biggest cultural risk when we are scaling?
when you're scaling, sometimes people can forget what great looks like. Quality is kind of something that can fall through the cracks quite quickly because you are now taking on so many other things that, something you were able to spend so much time curating before now it only gets a fraction of your attention. So, one thing that we do is this thing called the orientation period. So the first 30 days, you are on a 1099 contract. You are learning about our systems, our processes, and if that fits what you're looking for, and vice versa. Is this someone that we feel like is going to fit our long-term vision for not just this property, but Lone Star in and of itself. So after the orientation period is done, we do a review with the asset manager, with the director of operations. Ina has been sitting in on a lot of them to help me kind of standardize, what we're looking for, because it does ebb and flow with the each property and what state it's in and what they're dealing with and what we're talking about. So we all sit down and we really see, okay, well, where was the property when you first stepped in? Where is that at now? What have you learned? What are your struggles? What's your biggest responsibility at the moment? What do you like? Do you see yourself growing with us? So that kind of gives us a chance to slow down and really assess, okay, is this individual in alignment with what we're looking for? So another one that we've been doing is to help kind of communicate what we're expecting to the employees. We have a monthly town hall. So this is
Mm,
where
I love
the
this. Yep.
last Friday, yes, as you know, you're on all those calls. You get to see everyone, all 170 employees. We all get together at the last Friday of the month, and we just go over all of the wins, the birthdays, the anniversaries. We throw up pictures. What has everyone been doing on site? And we also go over all of the new policies that I've been bombarding people with.
Kind of the
Just kind
good,
of
the
giving
bad,
people.
yeah, the good, the bad, the ugly, sharing wins, sharing where we're kind of deficient, introducing everyone. But as we do get more remote, and how there's multiple sides of the company, right? There is the property management side, there's the asset management side, there's the on-site staff, there's the corporate staff. There's so many different pieces that make up a multifamily operation that it's our one window for everyone to kind of get together and say hello, where everyone is one. It's not just Rob at the top and then the maintenance individual there, if you will. We're all there together. We're all there to collaborate and share the wins and stuff, which is very, very awesome. And it also I think it promotes really good culture, but it also gets everyone under one roof to share the same vision. And I think for myself, as a reminder that, hey, I raise this money from investors, but who is really ultimately managing these processes, these places? Well, it's those individuals, which are the straw that stirs the drink.
Exactly. It's again, when you're scaling so fast and you have 22 properties that are, comprised of so many individuals, to get them all together to see each other. Oh my gosh, that's, at my sister property that's, in a different part of Texas. Hey guys, it's just so wonderful to see kind of everyone feel so jazzed up about being about, by being with Lone Star. Like you're not just really employed by Lone Star, like you're a part of the team, you're a part of the family. It's a type of verbiage that we try to use, especially on the HR side, is like very compassionate, very like understanding that this is a human being, and we're bringing them into our mission and our vision for the company in and of itself. And so it's just it's more of a tangible, materialistic way of doing so.
They're giving us a part of their life, right? Like the part of their life and their experience on this earth is with us. And I think ultimately, whether you're a tenant, whether you're an employee, everyone needs to be looked at and treated. Obviously, this goes without saying, but just to reiterate it more, like a human being, be treated, with respect and how you'd want your parents to be treated, like your mom, like your sibling, like your best friend who's working at the company. How can we provide an experience where how can you treat it like it is that individual there, that is your family member, right? To treat them with that dignity and respect with any role within the company. And I think since we are such a tight knit team within the corporate side of things, it really is kind of like a family business in many respects with all the Beardsleys. You've obviously grown very close with the Beardsley family, as have I have naturally, right? But we want to treat every component of the company like it is a family member like that. And to not lose sight of that. And I think the town hall does certainly promote that ability to do that there. But we could talk forever here. We're running up 45 minutes on this episode. It's been awesome. We probably need to do a part 2 to talk about the latest and greatest at some point, maybe to close out this year. But Hannah, thank you so much for coming on. If people do want to learn more about the systems, about the processes, about working with Lone Star Capital, or maybe they have a referral for us, where can they find you to learn more about yourself and maybe how they can work with Lone Star?
I would definitely direct people to Rob's LinkedIn. That's kind of the hub. We haven't quite figured out how to do more on the operation side. So I'm always ready for feedback. How much do people want to hear about the operations? Is this something that we should look into and have its own little subsection of Lone Star? But for now, Rob's LinkedIn and then my LinkedIn as well is the best way to kind of get all that knowledge at the moment.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Really appreciate it. For those who've
Thanks for
been
having
listening,
me.
yeah, for those who've been listening, we appreciate your time and we'll see you next week.